The story takes place in a futuristic version of Canada, a country where the population had grown so large that the government stepped in with a brutal solution. No family was allowed to have more than one child. It didn't matter if that first child died, a second birth was simply against the law. Anyone who dared break this rule was hunted down and thrown into the most feared prison in the entire nation. Along the border between Canada and the United States, security had been tightened to an extreme. Every single traveler was searched from head to toe before being allowed to cross. Among those waiting at the checkpoint was a soldier named John Bennick, sitting in a car beside his wife, Karen. Hidden beneath her coat, Karen wore a strange magnetic vest strapped tightly to her body. The truth was, she was pregnant, carrying their second child, and the couple was trying to slip across the border so she could give birth somewhere far from the government's reach. The vest wasn't just clothing. It was designed to trick the scanning equipment and keep her secret hidden during inspection. As the soldiers began going through their belongings, tension spiked when another woman nearby was suddenly arrested for being pregnant. Karen's heart pounded, terrified that she'd be next. But the vest did its job, and somehow she made it through undetected. Just when it seemed they were in the clear, one of the guards caught a glimpse of the strange device wrapped around her, and instantly the alarm was raised. A group of soldiers took off after them. Knowing there was no way both of them could escape, John made a desperate choice. He told Karen to run while he stayed behind to hold the soldiers off, buying her time to save herself and their unborn child. Moments later, John was overpowered and taken into custody. Along with a group of other prisoners, he was transported to a place called Fortress, the most advanced, most secure prison in the entire country, built deep in the heart of a desert where escape was considered impossible. When the prisoners arrived, guards stripped them completely and searched every inch of their bodies. From there, they were led into a room where something even more disturbing awaited them. A high-tech tracking device was surgically implanted into each prisoner's stomach. This wasn't just for monitoring. If anyone broke the prison's rules, the device could be triggered remotely, and it would tear its way out through their body. The prison's director, a cold and calculating man named Poe, laid out the rules bluntly. Step past the yellow line, and the device would send waves of agonizing pain through your stomach. Step past the red line, and it would kill you instantly. It didn't take long for the horror of this system to become real. One prisoner, gripped by panic, stumbled past the yellow line by accident. The pain dropped him to the ground immediately, and in his confusion and agony, he staggered across the red line as well. Within seconds, his stomach began to swell violently, and then it burst apart in a horrifying explosion in front of everyone. The surviving prisoners were then herded into an elevator that plunged them 30 floors beneath the desert floor, into an underground section of the prison. John was assigned to a cell alongside a prisoner named Nino and a robotic unit designated Z-10. To prevent any chance of escape, laser barriers lined the front of every cell. It was here that John crossed paths with two other prisoners, Didi and Abraham. Before lights out, Abraham gave him a strange but urgent warning. Whatever happened, John was not to dream. That night, once the prisoners had fallen asleep, the robot known as Jed made its rounds, scanning each mind. When it reached John, it dove straight into his subconscious and pulled up the dream, playing behind his closed eyes a vision of his wife, Karen. From his control room above, Poe was watching the same dream unfold, and the instant he saw Karen's face, something in him locked onto her. Dreaming was strictly forbidden inside Fortress, and as punishment, Poe activated John's implanted device. A blast of pain tore through John's stomach and yanked him violently out of sleep. The next day, while the prisoners were out doing forced labor, a man named Maddox, known among the inmates for preying on other men, tried to take advantage of Nino. John rushed in without hesitation to protect his cellmate, but before the situation could escalate further, Jed intervened by triggering the devices in all three men's stomachs, forcing the fight to stop in an instant of shared agony. The three of them were dragged into a small isolation cell lit by lasers, where they were interrogated about who had started the altercation. Nino, terrified of what Maddox might do to him later, stayed silent. Refusing to let his friend take the fall, John stepped up and claimed full responsibility for the fight himself. As punishment, John was hauled into Poe's office, and there, on a monitor, he saw something that shattered him. Karen, showering in what was clearly a section of the very same prison. She had been captured too. Poe wasted no time inflicting cruelty on both of them, torturing John and Karen mercilessly while they suffered separately, each unaware of just how close the other truly was. It was Abraham who later filled in the missing piece. Floors A and B, he explained, were reserved entirely for women, and that was almost certainly where Karen was being held. Meanwhile, on her floor, Karen sat beside another pregnant inmate. The moment that woman doubled over in pain, guards stormed in and forcibly dragged her away. Karen looked around and realized with growing dread that every single woman on that floor was pregnant, and that something deeply sinister was happening to the babies being born there. Back among the men, tensions boiled over again as Maddox launched a full-blown attack on John. The two clashed violently, and from her floor above, Karen spotted the fight below and froze in shock at the sight of her husband. The battle raged back and forth until John finally gained the upper hand, shoving Maddox off a high ledge. Maddox barely managed to grab hold of the edge, clinging on for his life. From his office, Poe gave John a direct order: finish Maddox off for good. But John refused to become an executioner and instead pulled his enemy back to safety. Enraged by the defiance, Poe remotely triggered the device inside Maddox's stomach, and it exploded on the spot. In the chaos that followed, before any guard could react, John quietly slipped Maddox's now inert security device to Nino, hiding it from view. Not long after, Karen was brought into a chilling chamber where John had been strapped down to a massive spinning apparatus known as the Mind Wipe Chamber. Poe had sent her there hoping she could talk John into submission, but guards yanked her away again just minutes later. Once she was gone, the machine roared to life, spinning faster and faster, tearing through John's mind as punishment for disobeying orders. Fragmented memories flooded through him, scenes from his military training, moments from his wedding day as his mind was pushed to its breaking point. When John was finally returned to his cell, he was a shell of himself, unresponsive, silent, staring blankly into nothing. He had stopped speaking to anyone entirely, and stranger still, he seemed to have lost the ability to feel pain altogether. Karen, now forced to live under Poe's roof, began noticing unsettling things about him. One night, she caught him sitting in a chair with a tangle of wires connected to his body. It was then she discovered the truth: Poe wasn't fully human anymore. He had been modified into an advanced being who required no food and no sleep. Once a month, he simply plugged into this system to absorb amino acids directly. Then came the most horrifying revelation of all. The same transformation was being carried out on every baby born inside the prison. Through a series of operations, these infants were being turned into advanced humans as well, part of some grand design to one day free the entire planet from ordinary human weaknesses like hunger and exhaustion. Karen was left utterly stunned by what she'd learned. 4 months passed, and John showed no sign of recovery. Abraham eventually told Karen that her belly had grown visibly. Their child would be arriving soon. Even in his broken state, something stirred in John at the news. Though he didn't speak or move, a single tear slid down his face. That night, Karen made her move. She got Poe drunk to the point of unconsciousness, then slipped away to the control panel and used it to enter John's dream. Inside that dream, she found a much younger John, trapped at the bottom of a pit. Reaching in, she pulled him free, and in the waking world, that same act of rescue brought John surging back to consciousness. Everyone around him was overjoyed to see him alert and present again. Without wasting time, John turned to Abraham and asked for help planning an escape for himself and Karen. Abraham didn't hesitate, agreeing to risk everything for his friend. When word reached Karen that John had recovered, her relief was overwhelming. Around this time, Nino handed John the security device they had taken from Maddox's body after his death. It turned out that Day, another member of their group, had been a skilled computer expert before his imprisonment, and he took it upon himself to study the device closely. Meanwhile, Karen managed to steal a small diamond-like object from Poe's private cabinet. Just as she was about to be caught, she quickly hid it in her mouth. The next day, she passed it along to Abraham with instructions to get it to John. That diamond-shaped object turned out to be something far more valuable than it looked: a complete, detailed map of the entire prison complex. Studying it carefully, the group worked out that the construction site offered a viable path to freedom. The following morning, Abraham quietly returned the map to Poe's room before anyone could notice it was missing. Meanwhile, Dee had cracked the secret of the security device. Inside it was an extremely powerful magnet. Realizing its potential, the group decided to use that same magnetic force to extract the devices embedded in their own bodies. The plan worked perfectly, and one by one, every device was pulled free. Not long after, the robot Jed alerted Poe that something suspicious was happening within the prison. Reviewing the camera footage, Poe saw exactly what had taken place: Karen stealing the map and Abraham slipping it back into place. Consumed by fury at such a betrayal, Poe was ready to act. But before he could, Jed delivered another blow. Due to his repeated failures, Poe had been stripped of his position as director. With the security devices removed, John's group made their final preparations to escape. They attached all of their extracted devices to a pipe within the construction zone and staged a fake fight among themselves as a distraction. When Jed detected the disturbance, it triggered the devices remotely, but since they were no longer inside anyone's body, the explosion tore through the pipe instead, blasting it open and creating an escape route. But their plan hit a wall almost immediately. Poe, watching from the control room, flooded the pipes with scalding hot air, while a squad of high-tech robotic guards opened fire on the fleeing prisoners. Trapped inside the pipe system, the group scrambled for safety. One prisoner, a man named Styx, panicked and tried to retreat back into the prison, but the robots cut him down without mercy. Elsewhere, Abraham had gone to retrieve Karen, but Poe intercepted him at the worst possible moment. Poe killed Abraham on the spot, and guards seized Karen once again, intent on ensuring her baby would still be turned into one of their advanced humans. Meanwhile, John's group managed to take down one of the attacking robots, only to make a chilling discovery: these weren't machines at all, but advanced humans repurposed as weapons. Arming himself with the fallen unit's weapon, John fought his way back toward the prison, cutting through everyone who stood in his path. Eventually, the group reached a lift and rode it upward, storming into Poe's private quarters in search of Karen. That's when John spotted something on a monitor that made his blood run cold. Doctors were in the process of forcibly delivering his and Karen's baby. John turned on Poe, demanding he call off the operation immediately. But Poe no longer held any authority. He wasn't the director anymore, and no one in the facility was inclined to listen to him. In the middle of the standoff, one of the robotic guards recognized the escaped prisoners and opened fire. In the scramble, everyone managed to dodge out of the way except Poe, who took the shot meant for someone else and went down. With Poe dead, Dee rushed to the control panel, trying to halt the doctors before they could complete the procedure. But before he could finish, a soldier shot him down. Enraged by the loss of his friend, John turned and fought back with everything he had, avenging Dee's death.